Good day to everyone, and I hope that everyone is safe. I will be discussing mental health issues in the context of substance use among college students. Because of the pandemic, the use of substances among college students and other people has risen. A lot of people find substance abuse as comforting. For example, the use of prohibited drugs would help them feel that their problems are dissipating. Or, for example, if people are smoking, they say that this would relieve stress. The discussion for today will be on mental health issues in the context of substance abuse among college students. You could ask people, how would you describe a substance user? So I have discussed this among families of people who have been using drugs. And I would ask them, how would you describe a substance user? Knowing that they have family members who use substances, particularly illegal drugs. We would ask this question because the substance user uses substances within a given psychosocial context. When you ask of a description of a substance user, these images would come to your mind. Would it be a person who is overdosing on illegal drugs? Would it be a person who would drink alcohol non-stop? Or someone who cannot stop smoking and smokes like a chimney? These are images of a substance user. These are common images that are prevalent. If you ask people, these are the stereotypes that are associated with substance users. How would they be described and what adjectives do we use to describe them? They would say addict, without change. In the Philippines, they would say they are magulo. Magulo means they are disoriented or they really want to look for fights and they are disordered. Basagulero, they always look for fights. Walang kwenta, they are of no worth. Pasaway, this is a colloquial. That means that they always violate rules and norms. They are salot, they are pests. They are like plagues. They are peste, they are pests. They are criminal, mamamatay tao or killers. They are snatchers or magnanakaw. And they are also perceived as dirty. These are stereotypes and adjectives that would be used for a substance user. They are condemned, judged, ridiculed, and oftentimes they are not given a second chance. So how would they change if they are not given a second chance? Or how would they change if they are always condemned and judged? What really happens in the life of a typical substance user? I have been counseling drug surrenderies, and these are the issues that I commonly see. There are a lot of problems, and these are family problems. There are self-esteem issues. They think of themselves very low. They are fathers who need to put food on the table. That's why they have to take drugs so that they would be awake for 3 days, so that they could put food on the table of their families. Some of them would say that there are a lot of broken relationships. There's abandonment and discouragement. You see loss of hope, a painful life, and a desire not to exist. Substance users are people just like you and me. It is not always that they want to be cool or to be in. These people want to belong, and some of them just want to survive life's blows. We have to understand the myths of substance use or addictions. These are the myths that are involved in using substances. First and foremost, you have a moral model, wherein addiction is solely physiological dependence, and addiction is seen as a brain disease. In the moral model, substance use is a sign of failure and a result of moral weaknesses, bad choices, or deficits of the individual self. Addiction is likened to being dirty, while sobriety is often referred as clean. The moralistic approach can become a barrier to treatment because it poses barriers to intervention. For example, there is fear of disclosing substance use because of being fired from a job, and that happens not only in our country but in other countries as well. There is a myth that addiction is solely physiological dependence. This model seeks to take the burden of choice, and it highlights the body's natural reward mechanism. While it is true that continued use leads to dependence even after harmful effects, this is not the whole story. And it's not only choice. It's not only choice when people decide to use substances, to be a chain smoker. Sometimes they feel that there's no choice at all. So this is the only thing that would make them relieved or feel comfortable. If addiction was just a matter of dependence, then once the person has been detoxed, he or she would be free from addiction. But that's not the case. The role of personal choice is omitted in this model. Addiction is solely a brain disease. This is a myth. This focuses that substance dependence's view of addiction is solely based on biology. It neglects environmental and social forces. Addictions are, in truth and in reality, not only a matter of choice, not only a physiological dependence, and it's not only a disease. Biological, psychological, socio-economic, and spiritual dimensions of the disease are at play. Let us remember that a disease that should not be seen as inevitable or without an element of personal choice. We can't understand the disease without the complex context or contributing factors. So what are SUDs? We all look at the DSM to understand substance-related disorder. So in the DSM, it refers to a cluster of cognitive, behavioral, and physiological symptoms, indicating that the individual continues using the substance despite significant substance-related problems. There are important characteristics of substance use disorders, and this is an underlying change. There's a change in brain circuits that may persist beyond detoxification, particularly in individuals with severe disorders. So how would you say that there is substance use? According to the DSM-5, there's impaired control, there's social impairment, there's risky use, and there are pharmacological criteria. What does impaired control mean? The individual may take the substance in larger amounts or over a longer period that was originally intended. So for example, in the case of college students, some of them use these substances in order for them to stay awake. After the term, after the semester, they realize that they can't live anymore without the substances. There's an expression of a persistent desire to cut down or regulate substance use and may report multiple unsuccessful efforts to decrease or discontinue use, but often they fail. The students, for example, college students who use drugs will tell me, I have tried and tried and tried and I really want to stop, but I really can't. There's so much difficulty in me. There's impaired control. The individual may spend a great deal of time obtaining the substance, using the substance, or recovering from its effects. Oftentimes, they would secure these substances from illegal entities. Craving is manifested by an intense desire or urge for the drug that may occur at any time, but is more likely when an environment where the drug previously was obtained or used. They would always look for the dealers. There's social impairment. There's recurrent substance use, and this may result to failure to fulfill major role obligations at work, school, or at home. Oftentimes, they would get low grades, or worse, they could get kicked out of the university or college. If they have a part-time job, they would be often absent. Important social, occupational, or recreational activities may be given up or reduced because of substance use. The individual may withdraw from family activities and hobbies in order to use the substance. A lot of family activities are not participated by a person who uses substances, particularly drugs. Hobbies will not be done anymore because of drug abuse. There is a newfound hobby, that is, using these substances. There's, of course, risky use of the substance. There's recurrent substance use in situations wherein it is physically hazardous. There are clients who would tell me that they use these substances, particularly drugs, and then they would drive. And sometimes they would drive at night. These substances would help them be awake when they drive. The individual may continue substance use despite knowledge of having a persistent or recurrent physical or psychological problem that is likely to have been caused or exacerbated by the substance. They would tell me that even if the semester has ended, even if I know that these substances will give me long-term effects, I would rather continue using them because of the benefits that I gain from them. There's a pharmacological criteria. You have tolerance, requiring markedly increased dose of the substance to achieve the desired effect, or a markedly reduced effect when the usual dose is consumed. There's withdrawal, and it is a symptom that occurs when blood or tissue concentrations of a substance decline in an individual who had maintained prolonged heavy use of the substance. After developing withdrawal symptoms, the individual is likely to consume the substances to relieve the symptoms. For example, there are clients, even if they know that alcohol is a depressant, they will continue to use alcohol because they want to be in with their friends. And they would always tell me that alcohol has become their friend already. There are different SUDs. You have alcohol-related disorders, caffeine-related disorders, and so on. These are the SUDs that are found at DSM. There are general risk factors. These are prenatal exposure to substances, exposure to community violence during childhood. A lot of students live in urban poor communities, and in these communities, there is a high incidence of crime. Also, they are exposed to substances at a very young age. Sometimes it is very typical for people to exchange drugs in the middle of a street. Females would have an unstable home environment, and this makes them become vulnerable to drug use. Having a psychiatric condition is also one of the general risk factors that is identified by the literature, and of course associating with dealers of substances. There is easy procurement if you know people who peddle drugs. There are general comorbidities associated with SUDs. These are conduct disorder, antisocial personality disorder, bipolar disorder, depression, and anxiety disorder. This can be seen in DSM-5. There are also psychosocial issues associated with SUDs. This would be poorer life satisfaction and suicide attempts. What can be done? We have to understand that there is a trans-theoretical model of change. So people would be at different stages. For example, if the substance user is at the pre-contemplation phase, no matter what you say, what you do, this substance user will definitely not stop using because he or she is at the pre-contemplation stage. You have to nudge this person towards the contemplation phase wherein he or she would think of some change. Okay, I need to change and I need to undergo some rehabilitation. What can I do? What are my options? Afterwards, the person can go into the determination phase wherein the person is really determined that change should occur. Of course, there could be exit and re-entry at any stage. The person after determination could go into the action phase wherein concrete steps are undertaken. There's therapy, there's active avoidance of the substances. Relapse can also occur at any phase. If a person relapses, you can encourage a person to just go back to therapy. There's maintenance and hopefully that stage would be maintained. Prevention is very much necessary for college students or for anyone who is at risk of illegal substance use. We have to identify and strengthen the protective factors that they have. What are these protective factors? They contribute to mental health. They allow a person to be resilient in the face of challenges. You can use these protective factors when things go out of control, and this can be a mechanism to choose people in your life who can help or could help you solve the problems. These are the different protective factors. You have social support, coping skills, physical health, the sense of purpose, self-esteem, and healthy thinking. How do you enhance social support? There should be increased ability to talk about problems to other people, asking for help and experiencing feelings of love and intimacy and friendship. Enhancing coping skills is also important. College students should be aware of their own emotions and recognition of how these affect their behavior. And there should be an increasing ability to manage unhelpful emotions. There are evidence-based ways of developing coping skills. For example, exercise. Having gratitude, thinking of things that you have to be thankful for every day. Getting enough sleep. Getting social to bond with other people. And to be with your emotions. To recognize that these emotions do exist. Enhancing physical health entails exercise and physical activity, eating a balanced and healthy diet, and medical compliance. The sense of purpose should also be enhanced. This would entail meaningful involvement in work, education, and other roles. It is also understanding personal values and living in accordance to these values. Enhancing self-esteem would be the belief that one has self-worth or value. It is acceptance of one's own personal flaws, mistakes, and weaknesses, and it is the belief in the ability to overcome challenges. With that, I would like to thank you for listening to my presentation.